hello, everybody that's joined us. We now have 37 people, so I think that's 32 plus the 5 of us here on the panel. Thanks so much for joining us today for how to land your first developer job. Like Amber said earlier, for those of you who weren't already watching at that time, I actually chaired this panel last year as well. So if you want to go back and watch last year's panel, you can. It's on the Code Bar YouTube channel. And all of the good people here that are on the panel have been in their developer job for less than a year. And Amber shared that they actually watched this panel last year before they got their job. And now they're actually on the panels, which is so cool. So I've got 4 really great developers here to talk to you about their journeys and how they landed their first developer job. And they've all got different backgrounds. Some of them are similar in some ways. So you've got some folks that did boot camps and things like that, others that are self-taught, or as some people like to say, community taught. And then other folks who have been to university as well. So hopefully there's something in here for everybody, and there's something in here that's going to resonate with you, or that you can relate to, or that you can think, you know, actually that path might suit me. It's all about encouraging you to believe that you too can become a software developer, and also to show you that there are so many different routes to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you, if you've got any questions for the panel, please do post them in the chat. I have quite a lot of questions that I've prepared, but I really want to know what you want to know from the panel, because the panel is here to answer what you are wondering about. So if you've got any specific questions you've got for folks, please do post them in the chat, and I will get through as many as I can with the panel today. So we're going to start with some very brief introductions. We're not going to go into a huge amount of detail because we've got an hour to talk, and we don't want to give away all our secrets at the beginning. We just want to give a little brief taster as to who we are. I will go first, and then I'll call on each one of the panel members just to give a brief intro to themselves. So my name is Sue Shardlow. I am actually not a software engineer. Well, I did go to a bootcamp, but I don't code every day. So I'm developer community manager at Redis, which is a database company. And yeah, I am chairing today's panel. So you won't be hearing about my journey, but I will be moderating this chat. I'm going to come to Asia. Asia, have I said your name right?
Yeah, so my name's Asya, the Arabic name, don't worry.
Okay, Asya, sorry, thank you for correcting me. Go for it.
Yeah, so my name's Asya. I'm a software engineer and a blockchain developer. I'm also a startup founder. It's called Chainverse. I'm currently building a communications platform for the prison industry. And yeah, I'm an engineering mentor. So it's me.
Brilliant. Thank you, Asya. And Amber, you're next on my screen.
Cool. So, hey everyone, my name's Amber. I'm currently working as a junior software engineer at American Bank. I also created a platform called Code Her Journey where I upload technical content, and I've created a blog on ambershan.co.uk. I previously taught with Code First Girls as an instructor for their web development and their Python course, and I'm still an ambassador for them. So that's a bit about me.
Brilliant. Thanks, Amber. And Imogen, hello.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Imogen. I'm currently a student. I'm in my placement year, which is like a year-long internship between your 2nd and 3rd year of uni. So I'm currently a software developer at IDBS, mostly working in JavaScript and Java. That's all.
Brilliant. Okay, yeah. There's loads when you said JavaScript and Java, it reminded me of those recruiters who don't know the difference. But yeah, thanks for that. And Mike, hello.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so my name is Mike. Been a software engineer for a bit more than 6 months. I joined CodeBar in 2018, and then yeah, I did a bootcamp in London, and I work at a fintech company in London.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. So Asya, I'm going to come to you first. Everybody here has got a really cool story, and so I can't really win. I've got to come to somebody first, and it's going to be you. But the reason I'm coming to you first is because, like a lot of others on the panel, you've come from somewhere else and then come into tech. But like I think a lot of our viewers, you chose to come into tech during pandemic, during the lockdown, didn't you? So I think a lot of folks can relate to that. So, you know, a lot of people would have found that they got furloughed or they might have lost their jobs. But in any case, they were looking for something different to do. So you, during lockdown, you decided you wanted to get into tech and you've tried to figure out how to do that. And then if my research is correct, you started a new job in January of this year after doing a few different sort of things to learn how to code, didn't you? So talk to us about how you learned to code during the pandemic.
Yeah, great question. So basically, the way I learned how to program is I did a lot of research into what I actually wanted to go into. So I'm a massive like blockchain enthusiast, and also I'm into like machine learning and artificial intelligence. So therefore, I decided to go in like and pick programming languages that aligned with my passion. So Python and also Solidity, and then picking them two, I just like break them down to like hourly or half an hour a day using Trello board and organize myself to teach myself the basics of both programming languages. Because I think if you know the basics of anything, you can pick up other programming languages, right? And then from then, I actually went into like boot camps. So in regards to how I taught myself to code.
Oh, Asia seems to have frozen a little bit, but I can still see.
Did I just cut out? Sorry.
You did a little bit, yeah. So you said in
Yeah.
terms of how you taught yourself to code, and then you froze.
Oh yeah. So in terms of how to teach yourself to code, I just break it down to like small daily goals and what you're passionate about, and then that way you're more driven to your bigger goals. So focus on the small goals, break it down to like an hour a day, pick a programming language that you love, and then go into that.
Cool. Okay. And so when I was reading up about how you got into tech, because there was a little article that you did with a People of Color in Tech publications. So I had a little read of that. And I think it said you did a JavaScript bootcamp, a Python bootcamp, and then you went on the Sky Software Engineering Academy, didn't you?
So I did a Udemy course, and that was actually on web development, and then a Python bootcamp, and then I got into the Sky Software Engineering Academy in January 2021. So yeah.
Cool. So the bootcamp, the Python and the bootcamp that you did, was that through Udemy?
Yeah, Udemy.
Right. Okay. And are those free?
Well, for a beginner, you get 90% off. So it cost me around £10, which is, I think in dollars, that's like, I don't know, $8, something like that.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that. Yeah, and Kimberly has kindly dropped the link in the chat, udemy.com, if anyone else is interested in that.
Well, so there's loads of free resources. Like if I didn't know about Udemy, there's Harvard lectures, which are completely free, MIT lectures, and also Tech with Tim on YouTube, if you want to learn Python or JavaScript.
Yeah. Okay. So you did the Sky Software Engineering Academy in Amber. You took the Sky to get into Tech Scheme, among other things, didn't you? Is that the same thing?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Right. Okay. And you had a slightly different journey because you did a lot of learning with Code First Girls. You actually came to Code Bar as well. And then you started tutoring with Code First Girls, which kind of solidified your learning. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So in 2018, that's when I did a mergers and acquisitions internship in Madrid. And I had a mentor who told me about, like, if you want to do your dream and work in finance, and you have to do exams. And if you don't pass those exams, then you're fired. So then I was looking into what are the latest hot skills to like make me marketable in the future, and the skills that are behind demand in the future. Because there was a lot of talk about automation taking away all the jobs, right? And that's when I found Code First Girls, and I did their web development course and I did their Python course, and they were really hard. They were so hard. And coming from a finance background, it's more stuff like if you're applying for internships, you say, oh, I'm quite passionate about finance. You don't have to go in with a book of all your balanced accounts and say, I balance these accounts in my spare time to prove that you can do the job. So it was completely different. I found it quite hard to like learn the application process to actually break into tech. But then I went back to do my final year of university, and that's when, you know, the pandemic hit. And then that's when like I decided to tutor for Code First Girls, because it was all online now and it was just less intimidating. And then officially like learning how to code in my spare time, joined the Sky Get Into Tech program and a lot of mentorships, and landed my role then. So that's like my journey.
Yeah, I love the fact you can laugh about it now that, you know, you took your exams in the pandemic and they were all online. Everything changed, didn't it? And it's true what you say. In tech, you get asked to prove what you can do before you get the job, and you've got to do it for free. And so I don't want to scare anybody off the process, but that's the reality. They do ask you up quite a lot up front, and we'll explore that later. But like, say you were a brain surgeon or something, they're not going to wheel somebody in and say, right, can you operate on this person in front of us so we can just check that you know what you're doing? It's just really wild. So, Amber, you, if I've understood it correctly, you were at university studying something else that was finance or business related.
Yeah,
And then
it was
it was
economics and accounting.
right.
That was my degree.
Yeah. So then in your year out, you decided, right, I'm going to do some learning, I'm going to do some coding and things like that. And then you went back to finish off your accounting degree, but you never went into accounting.
Nope, I didn't. So I went back in 2019 and I was applying for roles from August, which is like pretty early to be applying for graduate roles. And I kept just getting rejection after rejection. I remember when I first saw the binary search trees in a coding interview, and I was like, I only know HTML, CSS. No one had actually prepared me to the fact that there were technical tests and how to do that. And so I literally just felt so lost and just confused. So that was a big thing that I had to like overcome. But I decided to actually take a break because I said I had to get this degree. I'm sorry, but the degree had to be prioritized. And I said, oh, you know, like when I graduate, because remember the pandemic wasn't really in the plan. When I graduate, then, you know, I can focus more on it. But actually the pandemic gave me a lot of room to focus more on it because everything was online. So yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that brings me nicely on to Imogen now. So Imogen, you are a computer science student, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're taking a computer science degree at the University of Surrey, is that right?
Yeah.
Cool. And you are currently in your sandwich year?
Yeah, so between second and final year of my bachelor's, yeah.
Yeah, so just to explain to any folks that are not in the UK, because you hear the word sandwich degree and you think, oh, are you learning how to make sandwiches? No, right? So basically what that means is, generally speaking, it's a 4-year degree. So most degrees in the UK are 3 years. Well, in England and Scotland, I think they're mostly 4 years. And so you do your first and second year. Normally, you know, you go to lectures and things like that. You take your third year as a year out in industry, and then you come back for your 4th year to finish off. Just normally, like, you know, you do lectures and exams and things like that. So the difference between that and a non-sandwich degree is in your 3rd year, you go out into industry. And personally, I would recommend that. I did one in business and I felt like it gave me the edge over others when I graduated because I already had a year of experience. So Imogen, you're taking computer science degree at the moment, but you weren't always a coder, were you? So like, tell us the story about how you came to get interested in code, because you kind of discovered it at around 14 or so, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I decided to do it at GCSE, but I realized that everyone in the class already had programming experience, so I kind of found that a bit daunting. So yeah, I took some courses. I think I remember using Code Academy to learn the basics of Python. Yeah, so then I did computer science at GCSE and then at A-level, and then during A-level I decided I wanted to do it at university. Yeah, I knew I wanted to do computer science, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with that afterwards. So I thought a placement year would be good to kind of figure out, and I ended up taking a software developer role.
Cool. Okay, so just to explain to anybody that doesn't know what GCSE and A-level are, GCSE is the qualification that you take here in England when you're 16, and then A-level you take when you're 18. And you have to choose the subjects that you want to do. So you have to kind of like narrow it down. And so I'm quite interested to know, actually, for any folks who want to get onto computer science degrees, because I know it was a long time ago, when I was looking to go to university, universities that offered computer science degrees wanted you to have maths or computer science A-level. So what's it like now in terms of if you want to go take a degree in computer science? Like, are universities still asking for those?
Yeah, you don't need to have done computer science because, I mean, a lot of schools don't offer it, and normally your first year just covers everything that you would have done at school. A lot of universities want maths, but I don't think all of them do. You can definitely take a computer science course if you want to.
Cool. Okay. That is good to know. What, just a side note and a bit of a personal rant, is nothing seems to have changed since I went to university 25 years ago. Schools still aren't offering computer science and things like that. But what you can do now is do boot camps, as a lot of the folks on here have already said. Unfortunately, you kind of do have to teach yourself, but there's a lot more support than there used to be. So, Mike, let's come to you. Now, I think you used to work as a trader. Well, you definitely worked in finance, didn't you?
Yeah. I did a lot of trading in that role for sure.
A bit of trading, make quite a lot of money. But so you were doing quite a lot of coding type activities, like you're interrogating databases and stuff. And then one of the devs at your workplace said, Mike, like, why don't you just stop beating around the bush and become a coder, didn't they?
Yeah.
So tell us about how you learned to code, because you've been heavily involved in CodeBar as well, haven't you?
Yeah. So the first time I interacted with a programming language or coding in general was actually my first year at university, and I actually hated it, so I decided not to touch it until I started my previous job. And then on the job, obviously, there was a lot of automation to do, so I just started to write a lot of VBA and Excel, VBA for Excel. So I did that a lot, and then learning SQL was also one of the requirements. And then from there, I started to just write a lot of script and automate a lot of things, and then I kind of felt a bit limited, so I picked up Python as well, and then that's how I got myself kind of noticed by the devs at my previous job, and they asked me like, okay, would you want to come and do a transition internally? And then a lot of things happened that led me to kind of leave the company, but yeah, that's how I got into writing code. And I tried a lot of programming languages before I end up kind of going to the bootcamp I've done in London. Yeah.
That is something that I have noticed about devs, because I changed careers as well. So like I said at the beginning, I did a boot camp. I worked in marketing and communications for about 20 years before I went to boot camp. And so then the internet came along and websites came along. So I found myself doing that. And what I found was, if you understand a bit about what the devs do, they really love it. So yeah, I can see how that conversation went, where they're like, oh, here's somebody who's actually interested, and they might actually be able to make our lives a bit easier if they understand a bit about it. So Mike, you just said that you transferred into that team, but you also went to Makers just over a year ago, didn't you? So Tell us a bit about how those things all fit in together. Did you transfer to the team first and then go on the boot camp, or?
So that transfer actually never happened. What happened is I passed the interview, and they're like, okay, if you want the job, you have to move to Seattle. And I was like, what am I going to do in the West Coast of the US? So I actually quit my job, and a month after I joined Makers. So that's how it went. The difficult part is before doing Makers, because Makers focus a lot on Ruby. So I never written a line of Ruby. So I gave myself a month to kind of learn the language, and then just jumped in. And so that was that's how it kind of happened.
I love that. It's like, what am I going to do in Seattle? Like, and the unspoken bit is like, it rains even more than it does in England. Like, why? Yeah, I don't know. A bit of a difficult decision, wasn't it? But
it wasn't difficult. I was just like, okay, I'm going to be away from family. The weather is exactly like in London. Why would I go there?
Yeah, okay. An easy decision then. Yeah, it's not nice to be asked, I suppose.
Yeah.
But so one of the questions that people ask a lot, and it's something that I still keep hearing from folks that are learning, because I suppose in a way it's easy to keep learning, but it's harder to kind of take that jump, is how did you know you were ready to find the job? And Asya, I'm going to come to you, because you had that interesting sort of epiphany during the lockdowns that you wanted to learn, and you couldn't go to classes and stuff because everything was online. So you had to teach yourself and follow these programs, and you were hitting up all these folks on LinkedIn, everybody that you could think of. How did you know you were ready to get a job?
Do you know what? I don't think you can ever be ready for anything. I think you just have to throw yourself in the deep end, and like eventually you'll just know. It's just something that you just have to keep doing. Like, I think it comes with like discipline and just believing in yourself. And like I remember when, like at first when I was receiving so much rejection, I remember last summer when I was applying for jobs. I mean, Amber knows this. I think I had like 100 rejections. It was shocking. Whereas now, you know, I mean, every 10 jobs I apply for, like 9 will get back to me. And I think that comes with like just throwing yourself in the deep end, getting rejected, getting experience, because rejection and obstacles and failure will only give you value, experience, and knowledge. So you'll do better. And then the quicker you fail, the faster you become better and the faster you become more successful. And that's really what happened to me. Like I went from like failing all summer last year to all of a sudden hundreds of opportunities like coming my way all at once I passed the, like, you know, Jim Rohn, he's a speaker, he says something like get through the winter phase and then spring comes and you'll get opportunities, and you just have to be in the right mindset to attain them opportunities. And that's literally what happened to me. I got through the winter phase, got through the obstacles, and then came spring and I was able to get through interviews and land my first developer role. So yeah, this comes with mindset really.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you got a lot of rejections. So it's kind of like a funnel, isn't it? You put in loads of applications, some of them you get interviews, and then out of those interviews you get some job offers. So what would you say was the ratio between, just approximately, between number of applications to the number of interviews? Would you say it's like maybe you got 10% or less?
So no, if it was me, like last year when I was new, like 5 months in, it was like 99% rejection. Whereas once I got through that summer phase, I think every person differs. So I would never, I don't think, like, in my opinion, I can compare to like other people's journeys, because in my journey now, I could apply to 100 and I know for a fact 99 are going to get back to me, for a fact. So like my ratio has completely differed purely because of the belief I have in myself and contentment, and I know that I'm worthy, and like I've got over that imposter syndrome. Whereas when I didn't think I was worthy and I had all this like imposter syndrome, I kind of just focused on the negative, and I wasn't focusing on things in front of me, like fixing my CV or actually taking notes after each interview and stuff like that, because I was so focused on like the negative, which I couldn't control. And then when I switched the mindset, like, I mean, now like even fan companies headhunt me, so it just comes with like mindset, honestly.
Yeah.
So every ratio is completely different, and it depends on how you think it, honestly. In my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people go through a similar experience, and you're right, it is about mindset. It is really hard though when you apply for a job that you really like the look of, not to get a bit emotionally attached and imagine yourself doing that role and like who you're going to be working with and what it's going to be like, and then you get rejected and you're like, oh. But yeah, you kind of need to keep picking yourself up, and that's kind of inevitable in this industry. But there does seem to be a high demand for software developers at the moment. So so yeah, just keep trying, I think, is the message there. So I'm going to come to the chat. We've had a question in. I'm going to put this to you, Amber, because like you say, you were self-taught or community taught, as you like to say. And it's quite difficult for folks that are new to coding to decide what to learn. So the question is, how do you find a programming language that resonates with you? And like, how did you know which one you wanted to pursue? And also, like, how did you know which ones to go for in the first place before you even knew if you liked them?
All right, I hope that the background noise isn't too loud, because again, I'm at an event and I can't control these things, unfortunately. So picking a programming language that resonates with me. So I was actually working as a data analyst when I was still like looking for software engineering roles. So I was doing Python in my day job, right? And then when I joined the Sky Getting Tech scheme, I only joined it because they said that they were doing JavaScript, but it happened to be a lot of Python. But it was great because it gave me the confidence to start applying for jobs so you know, when you do the technical test, Python is pretty like straightforward to understand, so you can apply that knowledge when you're doing those tests. And I was trying to do JavaScript as well, and I found that quite difficult because everyone kept telling me, like, even though it's true that when you learn one programming language, it's always easier to learn another. But I was like, these people are lying, because in JavaScript, there's 3 different ways to write a function, and it just didn't make any sense to me. And I was overthinking things like, I'm not sure which way to learn something because I want to do something. I want to learn it so that it's like great in the industry, like industry standard. And it was all just very confusing for me. So, but I benefited from having quite a few mentors. So one mentor I had was through Black Valley, and he was a pro at CSS. And so he really helped me develop on that skills. And like we spoke about how front-end engineer interviews go. And I also had another mentor at the same time, which the first time we were missing this. They both still don't know. With Coding Black Females, and they had a partnership with The Guardian, and he was helping me a lot with the Python. So I had 2 great mentors that helped me with both the languages that I was learning. But I think it's just a matter of trial and error, I guess, because as much as I was doing JavaScript on the side, I eventually gave it up to focus on Python because I was getting some advice that not so soon in your career, not everyone wants to be a jack of all trades, and just to hone in on one. And that one for me was Python, and that's what I did all my interviews in.
Okay, thanks for that. I really love the fact you found a mentor who was like really good at CSS. I think we all need a mentor that's really good at CSS.
I know, he was, you know, and he's just like, it was great because he was showing me the industry standard of CSS, because I was doing my little, you know, Flexbox and stuff like that, but he was really, and he could explain it so well, and it was super beneficial.
Yeah, I think that person needs to write some tutorials so we could all understand.
I will not reveal him. I will not reveal who he is. He's mine.
Amber's not going to share their mentor. All right, great. Thanks for that. Thanks for being so loving there, Amber. So, Mike, I'm going to come to you next. I'm glad you're back because you stepped away for a second. I was like, oh, I'm trying to like juggle everything. I was going to come to you and then you disappeared, but I'm really glad you're back. Can you talk to us about what the interview and selection process is like for software engineers? We did touch on this a bit earlier. Let's have a bit of reality, but also not try and scare people off. But you know, let's be realistic about what it's like.
Sure. I think that process is quite standardized now, at least in the UK, where you would apply, you will talk to a recruiter about why you want to get this job, and then you will most likely receive a tech test on the back of that. You will be given a couple of days or a week to complete that tech test. On the basis of your answer to that question, you probably get an hour coding with someone. So kind of pair programming session, just to see how you think about problem solving and how you approach problems. And then after that, if everything went well, you probably have a kind of a couple of other interviews, one with probably another engineer in the team that you might join, or somebody else that is quite technical. And the last one will probably be someone that is actually not in an engineering kind of group at a company. At least for me, that's how it was. And I've heard that from friends that also work at kind of other companies and our recruiters at other companies too. So I think this process is quite standardized. I guess a lot of people would be kind of scared of receiving the tech test and then go through the technical part of the interview process. But I think, and I've seen this actually, I've seen people not getting the job not because of the technical part, and that is something that kind of surprised me a bit. But sometimes you actually don't get the job because your personality is not what that team is looking for. Or so I guess in that process, focusing on the technical part is one thing, and I think that's really what I did. But then being sure that you can fit into the team and that you're going to bring something kind of positive to that team is also something that they're looking for.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is a fact of life that people select others not just on merit. There's a bit of a myth of meritocracy, and there is always an element of, can I see myself working with this person, which is terrible because, you know, discrimination exists and it's wrong, but it happens. And you're right. And I think that as well as your technical chops, something that is really important for people to show and demonstrate is their communication skills, because communication is really important in software development as well. So as long as you can practice them and make sure you demonstrate you have good ones, then that hopefully kind of balances it out to what they're looking for. So somebody else has asked, and I'm going to stay with you, Mike, on this because you went to a boot camp. So knowing what you know now, what do you wish your boot camp had prepared you for that they didn't prepare you for? So what do you wish they told you that they didn't tell you?
So it's difficult for me to answer this one because I knew what they were going to offer, and I've done my research for quite a long time. Actually, it took me about 2 years to decide to go to this for the bootcamp route. I was going to go self-taught and just try that like that, but I also knew that going to the bootcamp was also kind of virtue signaling for the market. So I've talked to former kind of bootcamp grads a lot, and I met some at CodeBar quite a lot actually. Some of them I kind of like maintain some level of relationship and communication with them. So entering that bootcamp specifically, I knew exactly what they were going to offer. I guess I would say focusing on like the differences between the boot camps can be quite important, but I definitely went to this boot camp for what they were offering compared to the others, for sure.
Okay.
Especially on their curriculum.
Cool. I'm going to come to Assia with the same question, and I'm going to come to Imogen with a different one. So Assia, is there anything that you wish your boot camp had prepared you for that they didn't?
Yeah, so learning the basics of mathematics, like obviously I come from a non-technical background, so I'm more like English, law, like I use my right side of my brain a lot instead of my like analytical, logical side. But now obviously over the past year, it's like I wish the boot camps told us to prepare like basics of mathematics, algebra, and also algorithmic thinking. I had to like teach myself a lot of that, like how to problem solve, how to think like algorithmically, if that's even a word, because that is literally what technical interviews are. Like the technical test is not, they don't care if you can code. They honestly don't care, because you'll be learning a new tech stack anyway. They care if you can problem solve, and they can present you with algorithm that they ask you to like fix, especially if you're back-end engineers or software engineers or even full stack, like that's what you're doing. So thankfully I did learn, and one of my boot camps like did teach us that, and then I taught myself, so I was able to. But not everyone can teach themselves how to problem solve in the space of a couple of weeks or even a couple of months. It takes people years to do so.
Okay, thanks for that. And Imogen, you have got your job in a slightly different way. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you got your job? So like I said, I went on a sandwich course as well, and so we had an office there that dealt with placing sandwich students. So if you're taking a computer science degree with a sandwich year, then what could be a likely way that you could find your job in the third year?
So a lot of universities do support you a lot. Surrey does. They have their own job board and they will recommend jobs for you, so it's quite easy to find it that way. But also, just if I were interested in a company, I would go to their websites and look myself. And yeah, I found IDBS that way. I think it wasn't on my university board, but also there were job fairs you could go to find out what companies are offering placements. And a lot of them don't do placement years. You can kind of find summer internships as well, because some universities don't offer a placement year. So yeah, you could do the summer internships or volunteering, tutoring.
Okay. And can you talk to us a little bit about what the recruitment process is like for those types of roles?
So normally it would be kind of a short HR interview where they ask me questions about myself, and then a technical interview, which was just technical questions. And then I was quite lucky because a lot of the placement processes seem to have a take-home challenge instead of the kind of coding interviews, which I definitely prefer. Yeah.
And how long did they give you to do that?
It varied. Some of them were just a day or a couple of hours. One of them was a week, I think. Sometimes it can be a bit annoying because they're quite long. You have to put a lot of time towards them while studying at the same time. It can be a bit much, but I feel like they're kind of, it's easier to show your skills when you have a longer project to do.
Yeah, and this is definitely a common thing that a lot of employers want folks to do. They want them to, in their spare time, do a take-home test, and that assumes a hell of a lot of privilege, because there are some people that just don't have the time to do this. And if you're applying for a lot of jobs and they're all giving you a take-home test, and when are you supposed to fit them all in? So it's one of those things that unfortunately does exist, and hopefully if you do get one, then it will be a short one. So we're going to go back to mentors. Amber, I know you don't want to share the name of your wonderful CSS mentor, but you said you had multiple mentors, and somebody's asking, like, how do you find mentors? Have you got any advice?
Yeah, I have got a ton of advice. So there's loads of Sorry.
Somebody's
Yeah,
somebody's having a fine time.
I know, I can't control it. I'm so sorry. But
Don't worry.
yeah, there's loads of mentorship schemes that people are launching in various different communities. So if you're part of various different tech communities, some of them have that. So I've had some through Coding Black Females. I know there's stuff with Black Girls in Tech, Black Valley, and things like that. Even with Creative Mentor Network, they've got a lot of different mentorship schemes through there. But if you don't have any in your community, then definitely reach out to people on LinkedIn. I think that makes a big difference. So if you see people with a job title that you want, or someone with a similar kind of background, and I've reached out to people with economics backgrounds who are now working in big tech companies, and they've given me a lot of advice, and they had the bandwidth to kind of take me on and just have a chat with me. If you go back to Jessica's talk that she said earlier, she had a really good talk where she advised how to reach out to people in a great way. So yeah, definitely check out that talk as well.
Yeah, so that's Jessica Craig who spoke earlier. Did a talk about, I think it was how to ask for help. So all the recordings of all the talks will be on the CodeBar YouTube channel in a couple of weeks' time, because there are loads. So they just need to be edited down and uploaded to YouTube. So thanks for that, Amber. And yeah, no worries about the noise. I'm sure that everybody who's watching CodeBar Festival is having an equally noisy and fun time. We just can't hear them because they're all at home. So yeah, thanks for that. So I'm going to come back to you, Mike, because somebody has asked, I just got to find it in the chat. What steps did you take fresh out of Makers Bootcamp, and what gaps in your knowledge did you feel that you needed to fill?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So in my case, it was a little different because I kind of had a focus on learning a specific programming language before I joined Makers. So I think Jessica asked what drove you to pick a specific language. I think the first thing for that question was try to be pragmatic as much as you can. Look at what the market is looking for. And like look at your rankings. But in my case, I went to a lot of kind of tech meetups even before I knew how to actually write code. I went to a lot of tech meetups, and I ended up going to a lot of kind of Gopher meetup, which is kind of a community for people who write Go. So I went to a lot of Gopher London kind of meetups, and I was just like, oh, Golang seems to be quite of a good programming language to learn. So I was, before I joined Makers, I was like, okay, I'm going to learn this language no matter what. So first step was learning Go. And that was the first thing I've done. And the second thing is I didn't even think about the knowledge that I was missing, because you can't possibly know. And I focused on literally, studying to pass interviews. That's all I focused on. Passing interviews, redoing my CV 16,000 times. That's all I did. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. And Imogen, as for you, so you've kind of come into it a slightly different way. And I don't know, are the expectations on people that are studying for computer science degrees a lot higher? What do you think about that?
I wouldn't say I've found that necessarily. I mean, yeah, because we were in computer science, we learn a lot of different areas, and when you join a job, you might not have learned that in your degree. And yeah, I've worked with other people that didn't do computer science at university, but they've done a lot outside in courses, and they kind of know just as much as I do.
Yeah. And what have you found? Because I know somebody who did the same thing as you, but a long time ago, because like I said, went to university 25 years ago. They said that when they took their sandwich year and then went back to university, they actually had a more modern understanding of programming, because what you learn at university is very, how should I put it? It's all very kind of laid down and standardized, and it's been done quite a long time before you take the degree, because they're all validated. It doesn't move as fast as a boot camp where you can just slot in a new module very quickly. There's a much more strict process when you're putting together a university degree. So what do you think about the difference between what you've been learning at university and what you've learned on the job? How have you found that?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I've learned so much more just in the 6 months I've been doing my placement year than I did at my 2 years at university. And it's definitely kind of a lot newer information. For example, we kind of learned coding standards at university that we had to follow, and then at the job we found out they were completely different now, and we weren't meant to be following those. So yeah, it's been a lot different.
Interesting. And how do you feel about going out and getting a job after you graduate? Do you feel like the sandwich years made you feel more confident?
Yeah, and I think it'll make the final year easier as well, and kind of know what modules to pick and what I want to do for my final year project. I have a lot of a better idea of what I want to do after uni. So I think that will make it easier.
That's a really good point, actually, because you still have that final year. It helps you to kind of hone in on what you actually want to do for that last bit of your degree and really make the most of it. Are there people on your degree that have chosen not to take the sandwich year?
Yeah. Some of them have done kind of summer internships and things. I think most people want to get at least some experience. Some people just want to finish university quicker so that they can get working. But yeah, I definitely wanted a full year working just to get, I think, a proper experience. I don't think you can get from doing just a couple of weeks internship.
Yeah, I think it's different for everybody. And like you say, some people just want to get it over and done with. They want to graduate and they want to be out like in a real job. But I think for me personally, I thought that, I am actually working in a real job. So for me, it's the same thing. I'm just doing it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it just depends really. But it's nice to know that you could have the option and not necessarily have to take that third year out. Just a quick question, and I'll put this to everybody else, but I'm going to start with you, Imogen. Generally speaking, we are encouraged to negotiate salaries. Can you do that if you're applying for a sandwich or an internship? How does that work?
I mean, I didn't try to negotiate my salary. I assume, I don't know, because all the placement students got the same salary at my company. So I'm not sure if there was room for negotiation, but I'm sure that you can. Probably depends on the company.
Yeah, okay. So from that point of view, it's similar to when I was doing my sandwich year, which was not in coding, but yeah, there was like a placement salary and that's what you got. So that's quite interesting. Thanks for sharing, because I wasn't too sure how it worked in tech. Asya, I'm going to come to you with the same question, salary negotiation. Did you try to do it? How did you find it? What would you advise people?
So I've only just got my first software engineering role in fintech, and I think for like in 6 months' time, I will negotiate my salary. But I haven't negotiated my salary as of yet, so I just wondered it, and I was very happy with the salary. So for my like junior level.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Amber, how about you?
I'm in the same boat. I didn't actually negotiate when I received the role, but there's always room for negotiation. Like, always room for negotiation after your job offer if like you didn't necessarily do it. But even while you're in the job, when you have a job like performance review, there's time there too. But I think that I was so like riddled with imposter syndrome that I just didn't dare. I was just like, oh, like, maybe I'm not good enough to like ask for more. So I think that definitely speak to your mentor about it. I did speak to my mentor about it, but I was still like, no, I can't. So, so definitely speak to someone else who knows how to negotiate salary. I know Parul Singh has a YouTube video on it about negotiating a salary. I think she did an event with Manchester Codes on it, or Leeds Codes, one of the two. So definitely check out that video. I'll find the link and I'll send it in the chat.
Thank you. Thanks for doing that. So you said that you didn't negotiate, but do you feel like what you got was approximately what you would have expected from the industry standard, from your research and everything that you'd applied to? It was basically in line with what you were seeing people were offering.
Yeah, exactly that.
Okay, so you didn't feel shortchanged at all, but equally you didn't feel like you wanted to ask for more.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And you mentioned imposter syndrome there. Tell us a bit about the imposter syndrome that you experienced, because somebody did ask about that in the chat, especially since you sort of pivoted away from what you originally thought you wanted to do.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So essentially, when I joined, I did a Java bootcamp, and that's when I felt like my intelligence is just not there anymore, right? So I got an award. I won an award with Makers, the Women in Software Power List, and I remember going to the event, and I remember feeling like, how am I winning this award when I feel like I'm literally failing at work right now? Like the imposter syndrome was just so intense. And now like I'm with these super coders who like have done C# and all these other things. And I'm here feeling confident because I come from like Python, but to do Java was a huge learning curve. And I just remember feeling deflated, demotivated. Even though I had all of the support, I just felt like, will I ever get this? Am I even good enough to be here? That's just me being real. I literally felt like the imposter syndrome was taking over me. And I just felt like, how am I getting recognized outside of work when in work, I'm literally struggling every single day? But it gets better.
Yeah, just for anybody now who's decided they're going to bin the whole COVID idea. Yeah, no, it's all right.
It gets better. No, with time it does get better, because like when you're feeling that imposter syndrome within your team, it's important to communicate that with your manager and ask for feedback. So the imposter syndrome wasn't coming from I don't know anything, because obviously I'm a junior, they don't expect me to know anything. It was more the fact that how fast am I expected to incorporate the techniques I've just learned. So that's where it really resided. Like, am I learning fast enough? Am I doing okay? And when I'm getting feedback, it was like, I was kind of like, oh no, but that's like, what is that feedback like? But it's important to celebrate the little wins, And if they're saying you're doing a good job, just believe them, because they wouldn't lie. But I kept feeling like, are you just saying that like to make me feel better? But they have no reason to make you feel better if we're not performing. I'm sure they would communicate that.
That's true, actually. Why would they lie? There's nothing in it for them for saying that you were good when you weren't, especially when they're trying to, they need you to achieve something and they need you to deliver. And you're right, you need to celebrate the little wins and also not forget the big wins as well. So, somebody's obviously nominated you for that award and they thought you were worthy of it. And it's probably because of stuff that you did that you just don't think about every day. Not everybody goes and teaches other people, do they? That's quite unusual, I would suggest. So it's things like that. And it's important to remember your achievements and stuff. I think, I actually do belong here. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise, because everybody's unique and everybody's got a different journey. So there is no one prescribed path to get to there. Mike, I'm going to ask you the same question, because I feel like it's always the women that get asked about imposter syndrome. So I'm going to ask you, did you have imposter syndrome?
Did I do have imposter syndrome every single day.
Oh, we're talking in the present tense. Okay, well, tell us about that.
And it never goes away, and that's okay. And I think that's part of what makes you wake up the next day and try again and try again and try again. And I think everybody lives with it. Some people manage it a little bit better than others, but I mean, I have imposter syndrome every day for any type of reason, right? So I got into this new job thinking, hey, Mike, you're quite analytical, you're quite technical, and understanding how data pass through an entire system. I was like, how do I not get this, right? Or I don't know, you get new concept for the programming language that you work for, and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about here. And someone tells you this 6 times and you still don't understand, right? And then you start doubting yourself, and then suddenly one day you wake up and everything makes sense, right? And that lasts for 2 days, and then after 2 days something else comes in and you're like, okay, I'm dumb again, right? So imposter syndrome never goes away, and that's okay. I think my managers is always saying this is becoming a good engineer is doing 2 things: become better at learning and become better at managing complexity. And if you do both very well, you'll always feel like you don't know enough, because basically you have to become an expert at learning. And if you become an expert at learning, you know that every time you go into something, you don't know that thing. So your job as an engineer is to discover and to be more familiar with that new area that you're trying to explore. So I think the fact that imposter syndrome is here is obviously not something that you should let yourself being overwhelmed with, but it's okay if it doesn't go away fully, right? That doesn't mean that you're not advancing, and it's not something that should be driving you not to negotiate salaries. I've learned that a lot in my previous job, and I'm like, no matter what, negotiate. Even if you don't get it, it's okay. The fact that you feel like you have done it, even if the salary has not moved and they stayed on the same thing, if you have done it, you'll be sleeping better. So
I'm gonna hit you up next time I get a job and just say, hey.
Negotiate no matter what. And I'm happy to talk to anyone to not only how to do it, but how to convince yourself that you have to do it no matter what.
Yeah, I love the fact that Mike, the imposter, says you've got to negotiate your salary, even though you feel like every day you're stupid. Like, I think that just says it all, really. But I also like the fact that you raised everybody up by saying for 2 days you're going to feel like you're the best coder ever, and then you just go back to square zero again. Like, Mike, what's that all about? I was feeling really good when you said that, and then suddenly it was like, oh, yeah, you totally rained on that one. But yeah, no, you're right. And I think it's the nature of tech and the nature of coding that it just moves so fast, and there's always something new to learn. So even if you've got 25 years experience and a new framework comes along, you're still going to have to learn that. So in that respect, you're a beginner again as well. Yeah, okay, you've learned different languages, you've learned different frameworks, but as you know, folks on this panel have already said, just because you know one language doesn't necessarily mean that you're immediately going to pick up the next one. It does make it a bit easier to some extent, but it's not going to be an instant thing. So folks have dropped some links in the chat. Please do go and check them out. Amber has posted her blog post. It is a really good blog post. I highly recommend it as well. I'm just going to ask one final question here, which is, somebody has asked, how can they stop being scared of the coding interview? I think specifically about the coding exercises. So I'm just going to come to each one of you in turn. I'm going to start with Imogen. Just quickly, what would you say?
I was scared. I don't think I stopped being scared of them. Obviously, doing practice, just practicing every day, maybe for 15 minutes or just a short challenge, will make you feel more confident, I think. But I think you will be scared. But you've just got to do it anyway. And the worst that can happen is you'll get rejected, and then you can move on.
Yeah, practice makes perfect. I think possibly as well, write down, after the interview, write down what you were asked. It's never going to be the same in the next interview, but, it's a bit like whack-a-mole, isn't it? Once you've sorted one out, there's going to be another one, but that's the best you can do. Amber, what would you say?
So I'm writing down in the chat in case I forget. So 1, remember that they actually want to see you win. And sometimes they're there to answer any questions that you may have. I would say see it as a learning opportunity. That's definitely what I did. And I was like, use it as something. But I didn't get to finish what I was writing. But I think that it's definitely very, very intimidating, but it's a great way to learn what you need to focus on. So I remember I had my first front end interview before I landed my job, and they were like, they wanted me to incorporate an API and just to display certain data from that API. And I hadn't actually worked with APIs as of yet. And it taught me, oh, okay, like I need to practice this. I remember one interview I was asked about Git commands and I hadn't even touched Git. And I didn't know what the terminal was. Do you know what I mean? So then I was just like, okay, let me look at what the terminal is. Let me look at some Git commands and just use it to help guide you in the future of what you actually need to focus on learning. And so you can smash it for the next time.
Brilliant.
And breathe.
Yeah.
Remember to breathe. Have
Yeah.
some water. Make sure you eat beforehand. And yeah, it should be fine.
And get a good night's sleep as well. That's underrated. And Mike, to you finally.
So I think one little thing that is not easy, but if you're at CodeBar, actually, it's actually more approachable and doable than people think. But like actually doing pair programming with a mentor on a given date where you at CodeBar actually helps a lot. I have like, I don't know how many mentors from CodeBar I have now, like so many, like there's so many engineers that are willing and able to help you, and they already have the experience. So like try to build a relationship with a couple and maybe go through like tech challenges over and over again. And the fact that you're pairing means that you're also managing and improving your communication during an interview process. So those things are quite similar. So I would say, yeah, like use your community to improve that. And then it's scary anywhere all the time. So it only gets better. I mean, it doesn't actually get better. You get better. Yeah, so that's it.
Cool. Thanks, Mike. And Mike, you are now our personal mentor on salary negotiation as well. Amber's adding you to her big list of mentors.
No problem.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us today to talk to us about your journeys into software development careers. I really hope that everybody got something out of this today. Everybody's got such a different path, and I hope that something in there resonated with you. So Amber, Imogen and Mike, thanks so much. And Asia, unfortunately, Asia's internet dropped, so she dropped off the call. But thanks so much, you three, for joining me today.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.